Hello, and welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Patty Stalker. Please join Representative Jim Arciero and me as we tour some of the areas of Westford that have benefited most from public and private partnerships. Jim has been a driving force behind the economic expansion that not only has made Westford one of the fastest growing high-tech areas in Massachusetts, but has helped Westford's infrastructure keep pace with the growing population. It's a tour you shouldn't miss, so stick around. It's 30 Minutes. Hi, Patty Stalker here with Jim Arciero. Hi, Jim.
Good to see you, Patty. How are you?
Good to see you too.
Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
So, Jim is, as we know, the incumbent for state representative, and we've got a big election coming up. And so I wanted to spend some time with you, Jim, letting the constituents know in your district, in Littleton, Westford, and Chelmsford, and perhaps they don't know, of some of the things that you've done to help with economic development in the area.
Sure.
Okay, so we're here in front of Red Hat.
Yep.
And Red Hat is a world leader in open source software. They employ 400 plus people here in the Westford area.
Yep.
And they were thinking of relocating this particular facility to California, and was it North Carolina?
North Carolina, I think, was one of the destinations where they have another office as well.
Okay. And you were a big part of getting them to stay through a $3.4 million tax credit.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So for them to expand and to hire some new employees. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about how that impacts the area?
Certainly. Well, again, thank you for having me on. It's quite an honor to be on the show. Talk a little bit about something I get excited about, and that is the sort of economic explosion we've had here in the 110 corridor. I represent the towns of Chelmsford, Littleton, and Westford, and we're one of the fastest growing high-tech regions anywhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, if not in Middlesex County for sure, but definitely the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And a lot of that has been through the great public and private partnerships we've had here in the district. And as you see here at Red Hat, it's a fine example of that, a situation in which Red Hat was going to move their headquarters and this campus in particular out to the North Carolina or the California area, and we were able to leverage a tax credit of $3.4 million to help them stay here and to grow here. And they were able to add 180 new employees. So now we're almost up to 400 employees, and this brand new addition you see to this campus is great. The governor was out here about 2 weeks ago for the official ribbon cutting, and it's something that Senator Donahue and I worked very hard on, but it's also the great public and private partnerships, because we worked along with Paul Cormier, the president of Red Hat, and his team here in Westford, right with each other along the way to advocate effectively for this tax credit to have them stay here and grow here.
So when you say we, you mean you and the senator.
Yep.
And who else seemed to be behind?
Well, first and foremost, it was a tax credit that was awarded from the governor's office, which is funded by the state legislature.
Okay.
And so in order to do that, there is a lot of advocacy that has to happen, and a lot of that advocacy is due to the merits of the importance of keeping a business like Red Hat, not only here in Westford and on the 110 corridor, but it's also part of this sort of high-tech ecosystem here. It helps not only by growing jobs here in the Commonwealth, growing jobs here on the 110 corridor, but it helps all the small businesses, Patty, that are here along the way. And like I mentioned before, this sort of high-tech ecosystem we have here, you see in Cornerstone Square here in Westford, and the eateries and the businesses, they all benefit from having an additional 200 employees here, and keeping a business like Red Hat, who is world-renowned for their open source software and very well respected internationally. It's an exciting thing to have here.
Patty Stalker here with the Westford Town Engineer Paul Sterrett, and Jim Arciero, of course, our state rep. And we're here at the Beaverbrook Bridge in Westford. And Jim was one of the people behind getting some money to repair this bridge. So we're going to talk a little bit about how he went about doing that. But first, Paul, first of all, nice to meet you.
You too, Patty.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on here with the Beaverbrook Bridge and why it needs to be repaired here in Westford?
And I'm sure to you and most people at home this does look like a bridge, but in fact it is a culvert, which is one of the problems that has presented itself. It was a method of getting water underneath the roadway so commuters could go back and forth across the water, but it is not technically a bridge. So our hope was to come down and repair this because, as you said, it is on the state's list of structurally deficient culverts. And so we approached the town about getting money to make some temporary repairs. But then the representative approached us about the possibility of getting this structure listed on the transportation bond bill, which has now given us time, pause for reflection, to consider actually making this a bridge instead of just repairing the culvert.
This is sort of a conduit between Westford and Littleton, and a pretty highly used road, I would say. Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit how that bond bill works?
Sure. So this particular bond bill was a transportation bond bill. We pay a certain amount on the interest on the bond, and what happens is, in this particular case, is we were able to get an earmark for $725,000. And we have 5 years, essentially, is the life of the bond to be able to advocate effectively to have the governor, whoever that governor may be, Democrat, Republican, to advocate for the merits of that particular project and get that money released. So my job in the legislature is to fight for the earmark, to essentially get that placeholder, like Paul said, for $725,000, and then that gives the town of Westford time for a cost-benefit analysis. You talked a little bit about that?
Correct. Yes. What we now plan to do is go to the town meeting in our finance committee, our capital planning committee, to work with them and appropriate some money to prepare a study that will tell us, is it wise use of tax dollars to replace this with a bridge, or is it a bigger benefit to just make some temporary repairs? The structures like this, or most engineering projects, we take into consideration what's called the design life. We want a project to last as long as possible for the least amount of money, but there is a trade-off, spending more money to get more benefit out of a structure. But we now have the time to do that because, as the representative explained, we don't have immediate access to that $725,000, which incidentally would pay for not only the construction of the bridge, but not a small amount of that would go to pay for the design of it. But we now have the benefit of time to make a strong case with our study, the benefit analysis, to go back to the state in the upcoming the period of time, and I hope not 5 years.
I want to fall in the water here.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Slipped right here.
But that's just a benefit we rarely get, and that's the time to move slow enough to make all the right decisions along. We also, this gives us an opportunity to look at the width of the road and over the culvert, because right now it's limited to the size of the culvert, but if we get in the driver's seat if we're redesigning and rebuilding, and that gives us the opportunity to make it pedestrian friendly, so we'll have room for a sidewalk. Now people can actually, and you're correct, it's a very popular fishing spot, and this is my own commuting route to and from work, so I come by frequently, and I've seen some big fish hauled out of here, and the local fishermen are going to not appreciate that I'm letting that out, but so it'll be safer.
I would add 3 points too that Paul touched on, and that is essentially that this really is the essential thruway from 119 to 225. So it does 3 things. One, it's incredibly important for commerce. For we see a lot of trucks, etc., and courier that comes through this area, on a regular basis. Secondly, commuter convenience Paul's part of that as well. I know we use it all the time when we go to Littleton for events and representing Littleton and Westford. And lastly, aesthetics. I mean, this is, like I said, a very pristine area of Westford where people come and you know, have a sandwich and fish and you know, hang out with their family, and to you know, to have a plan that would make this aesthetically look even better and clean this up. You know, if we look here, you can see there is you know, some sort of you know, some improvements that could be made here that really kind of give us concern and make us pause that we can do something about it. So
I should point out that if this, for the reasons you just pointed out, if this fails, it goes into failure, or does need you know, some emergency, the detour for this particular stretch of road would just be a nightmare. Very undesirable. Now we're sending people onto other congested roads, and it's also, I should add, one of our more important natural resources, and there are no provisions for protecting or cleaning or increasing the quality of stormwater, rain, and melting snow that makes its way into the lake. Right from this road, you can see even the ramp we're standing on. All this erosion just ends up into the water body, which is unhealthy. So it will give us a chance to make increase the quality of the stormwater getting into the lake here, which is important.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us, and Jim, thank you so much for appropriating this money.
Happy to be here, and happy to work with Paul. Paul and his team and the town manager, Jody Ross, have been fantastic. They've provided me with the necessary tools to go to the legislature and advocate effectively to get the money. So it's been a great team effort.
Terrific. So this is helping both Westford and Littleton. So we're going to continue on our tour here and see some more of the economic development that Jim has helped bring to Westford. So I'm here at Minot Corner with Paul Sterrett. He is the Westford town engineer, and Jim Arciero, our state rep. And Jim was behind getting the federal and state funding to improve this very, very busy intersection here in Westford. Certainly. So if you could tell us a little bit how you went about doing that.
Well, it's something that was on the transportation improvement plan over the last 7 to 8 years. It's been something that's been on the waiting list here for Westford. As you know, it's been a very congested traffic spot here in Westford, and essentially what the grabbing the funding of $4.7 million for the area was a combination of federal and state dollars. And so I worked, you know, in concert with Congresswoman Tsongas's office, at the time Senator Kerry's office, Senator Warren's office, Senator Markey's office, as well as State Senator Eileen Donahue. And this year we had our groundbreaking about 9 months ago, Paul, I think it was. And essentially what the money is there for is not just to improve the area, but also to improve the economic you know, viability of the 110 corridor. Essentially to make an easier fairway, if you will, for a lot of the businesses along the 110 corridor from Littleton all the way through Minot's Corner through Chelmsford, but also improve the quality of life and public safety for people here in Westford, because it is a dangerous area, number one, but number two, it's also an area that, and very oftentimes I think taking, you know, children to soccer practice, to football practice, etc., at lunchtime or any of the times during you know, during people's commutes, it becomes very frustrating.
Yeah, with 495 there too, and people coming off and getting on during rush hour, like you said. And I know, Paul, you were telling me a little bit about it's one of the most dangerous intersections for this size.
One of the motivations that the town had to make an improvement here was the fact that the crash rate at this intersection was 3 times the state average for an intersection of this size and type. You can imagine with the volume of traffic going through here, because of the increase in development along the corridor with businesses and other industries, we had to do something to allow cars to get through the intersection safely. So working with the representative's office, our regional planners at the Northern Middlesex Council of Government, and Mass DOT, we were able to advance this project over the last 6 years that I've been involved, to the point now where we're ready to open up the lanes and have the signals fully functional, and in the very near future we're hopeful that by the end of October That's the current plan and schedule, and I meet regularly with the Mass DOT officials, and they tell me they're on schedule to be complete. So this intersection will be so much easier and so much more attractive and so much safer for commuters to get through.
You told me the company that actually is doing the work is a local company from Massachusetts that's been around for quite some time.
Yeah, and I will say, as a civil engineer, I'm not always able to report that we've had a great experience with a contractor, but E.H. Perkins, and they are a local concern. They're down in Hudson. They're an old New England construction company that's been building things since way back when. They've done a phenomenal job of keeping one lane open in each direction. There have been no detours on this job. There have been obviously it's a major infrastructure improvement project, so there are going to be some delays. There's going to be some congestion, but will all be well worth it when we're done.
And you said this is pretty much on track.
Yes, they're actually technically they're about a year ahead of schedule. They have until the end of the next construction season by contract to complete the work. But as I said, they've been a great contractor. They've gotten out here. They've made the effort, and so as I say, by the end of October, it will be substantially complete, meaning everything will be functioning the way it should. They'll have one course of pavement to come back in the spring. We like to have the roads go through one winter before we put the final course of pavement on. And but that's all on schedule. Adding the lanes to allow dedicated turn movements is going to be the most important thing. Right now, if you get off of 495 and try to go east on 110, you need a courtesy to get off the highway. Somebody has to let you in.
Yep.
But when we're done, there'll be 2 left turn lanes, so we double the capacity of storage at the intersection, and then more importantly, every time the light turns green, we'll be sending twice as many vehicles through the intersection. So we believe that the queues, the backup, and the congestion will be much improved. There'll always be congestion at peak hours, and you'll always have a light cycle or 2 to sit through, but you won't be stuck back on the highway.
So Jim, is there anything else you would like to say about this project?
Well, it's just another fine example of the public and private partnerships we've had here in the 110 corridor. The infrastructure that we've worked very hard to leverage, the money that we've worked hard to leverage here is going to improve this entire intersection. It's going to improve the traffic, improve public safety, and it's going to help businesses here grow. So it's an exciting time to be here. We're on the move.
Jim Arciero is the Democratic incumbent representing the voters of the 2nd Middlesex District of Massachusetts. The election takes place on Tuesday, November 4th. I'm Patty Stalker. Thanks for joining me today on 30 Minutes.